Okay, looks like we are live. It's strange to not see people, but I know you're on. So I've looked at the attendees list. So we'll wait a couple more minutes to see if we get any stragglers coming on. So I'll just talk to myself for a minute. Hopefully everybody's had a good day. Lots of inspections. And I can't think of anything to add to that. So I'm just going to get started as soon as my computer says it's 4 o'clock. All right, it's 4 o'clock, so I'm going to get started. Welcome everybody to the Sporecyte webinar. Today we've been doing these monthly for a while now. It's definitely fun to put these on, and we'll continue doing it. Our goal is to really provide, helpful information to our inspectors, our home inspectors. We're starting to add some more mold assessor specialists. Inspection guys, as well as some industrial hygienists. So it's really fun to see the growth. If during the presentation you have questions, I've seen a couple come through the chat already, but feel free to put those in the chat. And while we talk about the chat, Ellen Ogihara is being our moderator today. So she'll take those questions and then feed them to me. And hopefully if I'm paying enough attention, I'll see the question. I'll get to it sooner or later. And Ellen also, she's full-time with Sporecyte now. She has been working part-time with us for quite a while, helping with accounting and just running down, problem solving or figuring stuff out for us. So now she's on full-time as an account manager. So you'll all be able to talk with her, and it's super good to have her on. She's helped me out a ton and our whole team a ton. So that's awesome. Let's see. So I'm going to jump right into the first question from Matthew Christensen regarding what's the best way to get real estate agents excited about mold testing. So I don't know that I have the best answer for that right now. We do have on our website, in the pro resources section, we have at the very bottom a marketing flyer. We developed that for home inspectors to use, hopefully to be able to show real estate agents as well as their clients, what Sporecyte's all about. We are going to be hosting a webinar, probably not next month. Next month, John Haynes is going to be hosting our webinar. And John is the galactic leading mycologist who helped us develop Sporecyte. So I know John's on today. I'm sure he's smiling, but he'll be doing the presentation next month. So I think that following month, I'm going to try and put together a real estate agent kind of kit and ideas for bringing on real estate agents. But what I've found so far is that when inspectors, show that they're starting to do mold testing, they start getting more requests for it. So I would just say, talking to a real estate agent, this is an option that now I'm offering. And as we go through today's seminar, I think that'll answer a few of those questions, perhaps, maybe not how to market them directly, but the value of the mold test. Let's see. We got another question from Matt. In my area of Southern Utah, it seems like no one wants this service. Maybe I'm just dumb. So I doubt that. I don't think there's any dumb inspectors. You guys have to take a lot of training and to keep up on things in most places. Some places, I think mold testing is more prevalent, and it seems like it's really growing more and more as a topic with real estate agents and home buyers that they're bringing up to their inspectors. I think part of it may just be awareness, but if you would watch, we did a webinar a couple of months ago with Don Harding regarding what do we call it? The secrets of mold marketing, something like that. he goes through kind of how he presents needing or identifies if a home or a family needs a mold inspection. That might be helpful to you. So let's see. Why should you, another question from David, why should you have an old mold area that is dry now tested? I mean, if you knew that there was a problem and that problem has been remediated and there's, no more problem, then you're probably good to go. I mean, I think that's really the key for mold testing, is making sure that you remediate whatever the problem is that's creating the moisture, and then you clean up and remediate the mold, and then you should be good to go. So with that, I'm going to jump into the webinar. So I'll continue to pick up questions along the way. So the webinar topic is mold testing worth my client's money? So the marketing department found this on kind of a social feed, and they thought this would be a good thing to talk about. So I think they were right. I had to scratch my head a little bit as I thought about, okay, what's the best way to approach this? So you'll see that in a minute. Here's our agenda for the day. So kind of an overview of TechSite, which is our parent company, and Sporecyte is a product and a brand within that for environmental analysis. So then we'll talk about, what is a mold test? Why would we do a mold test as an inspector? Then what's the specific benefit to the home buyer or a building owner? Because as you guys know, oftentimes we're finding that existing property owners are calling and having home inspectors as well as other inspectors, do mold tests. So the next thing is, what's the other info that a Sporecyte report provides that can be of benefit and of real value to a homeowner or building owner? And then we also just put some common questions that we get at the bottom of the presentation, but we'll probably keep getting questions coming in. So I'll do this one more quick question. Jim asks, if you see mold growing on a wall, what's the point to doing additional mold testing? So I may not have the best answer to this. Our lab director may have better information, but I would take a stab at it. If you see something growing on a wall, you may not necessarily know it's mold. You'd know that it's probably some type of microbial growth, but you could identify, is it mold or is it not mold? One thing that you might say is you would look at that and say, is there a moisture issue that's causing that? Is it a water leak or a roof leak or a window leak or high humidity? If you could feel good about how to mitigate that, that might take care of it. Some people want to know specifically, is that mold or is that not mold? So the surface test is great. If you're seeing something, perform that surface test, and then you'll know exactly what you've got. But that will kind of be up to you and how you want to approach that. We're getting more questions on this than we've ever had before. So I'm going to take the next one. So Bob asks, I'm Bob from Texas. In our state, home inspector needs a license to test for mold. I'm a vendor partner with the Association of Texas Real Estate Inspection. I'm a full-time mold assessment consultant. Is Sporecyte licensed? Is Sporecyte a licensed mold assessor or licensed lab? And we are a licensed lab in Texas. So that's our license is for the lab. So that's the answer to that. So we would love to work with you, and feel free to give us your phone number or email address, or you can call. We have Ellen's, our helpline. You can call from the website and reach out to us. So we'd love to further that discussion. One other thing that Dylan put in the chat, he says, and this is in regard to surface testing, without testing discoloration, you can only presume that it's mold growth. If you test the surface, you can definitely say it's mold growth or not mold growth. So some people really want to know specifically, is that mold or is it something else? So yeah, without testing, you truly don't know what's going on. Okay, so a little bit about me, and thanks for all the questions. Hey, if we don't finish the presentation, I know what we can do the month after John does his presentation. Again, my name is Jim Bates. I'm the director of sales for Sporecyte. I've been at TechSite, Sporecyte. I've been at TechSite for 4 years, and I've worked on Sporecyte, the entire time. So it's really been fun developing this product, within TechSite and with our other team members. It's just been a great project and ride, a great company to work for. Okay, so a little bit about TechSite. The company was founded in 2013. So it was originally a technology that was being developed at the University of Utah in conjunction with a big reference lab here in Salt Lake City, ARUP, and they were working on using artificial intelligence and machine learning to identify microscopic, cells and things that they were thinking of that would be good for this type of testing. So through that and through all these years, we really have become world leaders in machine learning and artificial intelligence. So how to, train AI models and use machine learning to identify, count, classify different kinds of things that we'll talk a little bit more about in a second. So computer vision is taking images and identifying those images using artificial intelligence. To do that with what we do, because we're dealing on a microscopic level with all the products that we have and develop. So we need to use microscopes. So initially, we thought this was going to be a pretty easy thing to do, but it's actually really a lot of expertise into using digital microscopes and for identifying the things that we are identifying. So it's been incredible what a learning curve that's been. And we probably know more than a lot of the microscope companies do about what we're doing and how to do it. The things that we do analyze, so, Sporecyte is our environmental company. So we do air, liquids, smearable, diagnostic testing. So, blood, urine, stuff like that. Who uses Sporecyte or who uses TechSite? Sporecyte's obviously building inspectors, home inspectors, but labs, pathologists, doctors, veterinarians, etc., are using Sporecyte or TechSite all over the world. Sorry about that. And then we have 3 verticals. TechSite's the overarching company name, and Sporecyte is the environmental analysis portion of the company. TechSite is also the name of the human analysis part of the company. Some of you may have heard, and some might not be aware, that we recently signed a deal to collaborate with Mayo Clinic in working and developing human testing. So that's super, super exciting for our company. For the animal analysis, we do analysis for companion animals as well as working animals. Zoetis is our partner, and we white label our products for them. And the name of the product, it's for their website, is vetscanimagist.com. And that's their website. And they just put our products into their marketing channel. Just to let you know, these guys, it used to be Pfizer Animal Health, and they are, they spun it off into its own company. It's an $80 billion market cap company. Okay, so apologize for taking so much time. I'll talk faster. Our commitment to inspectors is just, the goal is to make your lives better. So providing quick, accurate, consistent, affordable, mold testing. Our report is designed for your clients, your home buyers and property owners, real estate agents, to make it as easy for them to understand and interpret their report and have some basic actionable ways to go. So again, to have the best report in the industry, we try and do all the reports and analysis the day we receive your samples. We do that the bulk of the time, but our guarantee is the next business day that we will have that emailed out to you. But we probably get out 95% same day. Let's see, the other thing we promise is continuous innovation. Right now, we are developing a chain of custody that will be a digital chain of custody, so you'll be able to fill it out on your phone or your tablet. So that's coming in the next couple of months. Provide just the best product in the industry, and then continue to just provide excellent service. So service is everything. All right, here we go into the real part of the webinar. So the marketing department found this, as I said, on a social kind of forum. And the question somebody was asking was, at the risk of opening up a can of worms here, can those that do mold inspections tell me what purpose, other than making money, do the mold tests serve? So That is a great question. So to start that, what is a mold test and what's the purpose? So the purpose and benefits are pretty, straightforward in most ways. It's to look for indications of potential moisture issues in a home or building. So the results can give your client some useful information. Ideally, perhaps, is that there's no mold issue found. So that's really good news and peace of mind for the home buyer or property owner. The second would be, if a problem is found, key would be, number two, identify and repair whatever's causing that moisture problem and remediate and clean the mold. So when you find that, as we'll mention here in a minute, the goal of the mold test is not to kill a deal. And most of the deals that we see that there's a problem, they generally are able to cure that problem and finish the deal. But occasionally we have had some that were just, terrible problems, and the deal did die and they walked away. There are different types of mold tests. At Sporecyte, we just do two types of analysis on tests. So air samples and surface samples. So air's the little air cassette. And one thing to note here is that we analyze the Zephon aerosol as well as the EMS, Allergenco D, and Positrack. So those are the only cassettes that we process. So other vendors have their own cassettes, but we do not process those. So make sure that you're using the Zephon aerosol that says Zephon on it, that is manufactured by Zephon, or the EMS, Allergenco D, and Positrack. So an air sample gives you a snapshot of the conditions and the volume of air at a specific location and a moment in time. So in the world we live in, things can change moment to moment, but we're doing our very best while we're at the location to give them the very best reporting and analysis that we can do. One thing that we do in the air samples is we always want the outdoor sample to be taken that we can use as a comparative or control sample, what's going on outdoors versus indoors. Again, there's no perfection test in the world, but we're doing the very best we can under the conditions that we're given. So you need a spore trap and an air pump. And the goal is to determine if mold is affecting the quality of that space that people are breathing. So the air sample can potentially help identify hidden mold issues. So oftentimes we'll find something where there wasn't anything visible, but they are finding a significant amount of mold. So they've just got to figure out, where is that coming from, and then just remediate those issues. The most common time and volume for that is 5-minute sample at 15 liters per minute. Some inspectors want to do longer samples, and that's okay. Surface sample, we do the swab or the surface slide tape. And that would be if you see some discoloration on the building material, you could determine, is that mold or not mold? Again, sometimes if you can figure out where that water problem is coming from, what's causing that, you might not need to test for that. We don't want you to have to do things that the homeowner or the family, if they don't need it. So we don't encourage people to do it just to make money, but to provide a valuable resource for them. So again, what does it indicate? The air sample indicates if mold is impacting the air quality of that space. So the levels of mold spores in the sample location versus outdoors. So on our report, we have that at a glance page that has a green, yellow, red, giving a quick indication, are there elevated spore levels, and how if you should investigate further. And then the surface sample, gives you an idea of what that condition of those building materials are, mold or not mold. One thing that we see commonly is that people have health issues in the home. They might be concerned if there's an animal, then that might be an indicator of some allergies or all different things. We'll cover that a little bit more later. So one thing to know for sure is that the Sporecyte report, it's to assess the quality of the building materials or condition of the building materials and look for potential water moisture problems. So it's not a safety or healthy report. If somebody wants to check the condition of the health, they could take that report to a health professional that specializes in that. And the health professional could then look at the report and create an analysis. That the report in itself is not for human health. It's just for the condition of the building materials. So the goal of the mold test, as I mentioned before, it's not to derail a home purchase. It's to, help the homeowner or the home buyer, ascertain, does any additional work need to be before I close on the home, and how can I move forward on that? So really, peace of mind and protection for, them and their asset. So if an issue is found, we've got elevated levels. Oftentimes the home inspector can identify that, in the home. Sometimes you might need to call in a specialist to do further investigation. So, I mean, that's just a reality, is that sometimes it's hard to find, where that problem is. There can be conditions where we had a job come in today, and the inspector called and said, we're working on this thing and we found some stachybotrys. Is that something we should look at, or is that something that we can just ignore? Can you go back and look at the sample and make sure that what you found was stachybotrys? So I pulled up the report and I saw, our count for stachybotrys. Then I went down to the images pages, and we had images of the stachybotrys spores. So I showed her that on the report, and I said, unequivocally, we are finding stachybotrys. So we're not at the property. So you've got to work with the property owner, and they had a remediator out there. I'm like, you guys need to identify, what's causing this, but for sure we're finding it. So whether, it's in this home, or the remediator was saying, oh, I think I brought it in from outside the home. It's like, we're not there as the report providers to make those distinctions. But it was cool to see they had this specific question, and we could point to, like, here's the picture, unequivocally, this is stachybotrys. So let's see, back to air sample. Sorry for digressing, but that just happened this morning. So it was kind of a really great situation of how beneficial it was to have the images in our report. As I was saying, like number 2 there, sometimes you do need an environmental consultant to come in and, do a further analysis if it's something that you're not finding, but the report is pointing out. And again, the key is, if there's a moisture issue, find the source, fix it, and then clean or remediate the conditions. So if it's not elevated, that's the best outcome possible. With a surface sample, if the discoloration is confirmed to be mold, then you should remediate that, again, solve the problem. Okay, what are some benefits, other benefits, specific to the Sporecyte report? One thing that we do have on our images pages, and I've got some pictures of this in a minute, you can get a visual idea of how clean that building air is. And the home buyer might want to say, hey, could you, I want the filters replaced or carpets cleaned. And sometimes we just find just a lot of junk in the air, not necessarily mold, but just a ton of junk. And you'll see a couple of those in a minute. One with a ton of mold. Well, they both have mold, but just a ton of junk in the air. It's like great to clean the house and to clean that air. Again, the other question is, might be, is there animal living there? And we differentiate between human skin fragments and animal skin fragments. So here's one of these images that I thought would be fun to show. So on this left-hand side, we say trace 4X. So that's a enlargement on what actually gets, this is an air sample. So as air gets sucked through the cassette by the pump, it lays down this linear trail of debris, and we show the outside air versus the inside air. Ideally, you would like both of those to be clean, but for sure, it'd be a lot better to have the inside air have nothing on it, and certainly a lot less than what you see in the outside air. So this is a great visual, just kind of thing. How dirty is that air? And I would say by looking at this air is pretty dirty. Ideally, there's nothing or almost nothing on this trace for the inside. So then we have the zoomed in image. You can see these light blue kind of square or oval things. These are human skin fragments. Then if you can see my cursor, you've got these long kind of jaggedy ends light blue things, those are animal skin fragments. So it's actually really quite easy for us to tell the difference between animal and human skin fragments. So we can give you the count of how much, you know, skin fragments, human versus animal, there is. And that also is kind of a good indicator on how clean and well maintained the home's been. In these pictures, you can see all these little pieces of black particulate. We would call those little bits of carbon. And then you can see these kind of tan particles, which would be little bits of soil generally. So pretty interesting what we see on there. So here's another image of what we see on our images pages. So you can just see how there's not very much debris on the outside trace, but on the inside trace, it's just a disaster, for lack of a better word. So in the zoomed in page, you can see, you know, we've got some fibers on here. We've got lots of soil, little bits of carbon in here. I don't know if you'll be able to see on your screens, but you can see here where my cursor is. This is a chain of Aspergillus penicillium spores. And so then when we go down to notable objects, you'll see we've identified several of those chains of spores. And the chains are super critical because when this particular mold grows, it grows in this chain. As it breaks off of the growth structure, it'll break off as individual spores, or as it flies out and dries up, it'll break up into individual spores. So when we find these chains, it's highly indicative of a mold problem nearby. So I wanted to show those. And also here's, you know, a couple Chaetomium spores, Cladosporium. You can see that it's in its growth structure there. So I thought those would be super, super cool to, you know, the value that we add to these reports by having these images. It's like that woman this morning. Do you really think I have Stachybotrys? Obviously, she was hoping that they didn't. But when we could show, here's an actual picture of your air sample, you know, it just tells the story. And when we initially started rolling out our reports, people would call up all the time and say, are these just stock photos of what we could expect? And it was nice to be able to say, nope, this is the reality of what's actually in your air at that location for this sample. All right, the other thing that we provide on the Sporecyte report that can be valuable and will become more valuable over time is we count everything in total. So all the mold spores, all the particulate that we count and that we report on, but we also find a lot of particulate that we don't put into the report. So we add all of that up and then we put it into sizes by microns. So this can be used, you know, if you find all of these, you know, huge levels, you know, people are using it saying, hey, we want to clean the carpets or, you know, get better filtration, things like that. So it allows that. So here's broken down by size. In our particulates part of the report, you'll see that we are looking for pollen, hyphae, which is the growth structures of mold. You know, the different skin fragments, human versus animal. But here, down at the very bottom, we've got total particulate and then by size. You can see, you know, this one, there's really dirty air, 160, you know, almost 162,000 particulates in a cubic meter of air. And basically, if you know, put your arms around, you know, that's what you're going to get. And that might be a good thing to mention right here is when you do an air sample, you know, 5 minutes at 15 liters per air, that covers, you know, roughly an 800 square foot area. So if you're in a big house, you know, one air sample isn't going to capture everything in that whole, you know, big house. And also if you've got hallways with doors, you know, you can't always say, hey, we're getting everything. You want the conditions when you're doing the test to be living conditions, and you want to put the air sample cassette, you know, in the breathing zone of where you're taking that. So if you're in a home that hasn't had anybody in it for weeks or a month, you know, things will settle out of the air. So you want to make sure that when you do the test, it would be equivalent to somebody living there and just doing regular, you know, life activities in that area. So in the future, we're working on trying to come up with an air cleanliness index, kind of an indoor air quality particulate, because we can't detect VOCs. We can only detect particulate because we're only visually identifying things, and gases, you know, can't be visually identified. So that's on the way, and we'll have another kind of a at a glance for that air cleanliness index when we get to it. So again, part of continuous innovation. Let's see. So what homes and buildings and maybe what families would really be beneficial, could really benefit and have value from doing a mold test. So, a building, if the seller's disclosure says, hey, we've had past water leaks, something that you would want to make sure, visually check, but also you might also want to do an air sample there, or a surface sample if you can still see staining. They haven't cleaned it up all the way. You want to make sure that that's fully been remediated and cleaned. If the air is smelly or musty, that's an indication that there could be a mold problem. Again, visible staining on the walls or building materials, high humidity levels. Let's see, animals in the home. I'm not sure what I meant by home air cleanliness. I think that came from a different place I was typing, but I left it there. So potential allergens, some people like to see if there's animal skin fragments, which may indicate, potential allergens, but not necessarily the allergen itself, but also cleanliness level. And then homes that have dirt crawl spaces underneath them. A lot of times inspectors will test in the living area above that crawl space with dirt, thinking oftentimes mold spores will come in from below, and then you would kind of want to seal off that crawl space. Okay, so we've got another question from Robert. Let's see, if you find microbial staining in one area, i.e. beneath a bathroom sink, adjacent to a water heater, etc., can we just do a tape or swab sample, or should we recommend a full mold test, or at least recommend a full mold test, or at least in the area? Not sure what I should recommend. So I'll take a stab at this, and Dylan, our lab director and product manager, can send me more info. But I would say, if you're seeing staining, the best thing to do would be to do a surface sample to know, specifically what it is. Ideally, you can identify, where that water problem, the moisture problem is coming from. But it is good to know. A lot of inspectors, they don't want to make the call like, oh, that's mold. They would do a surface test. So the question then might be, would we recommend doing an air test as well? And I'll let Dylan kind of send me a comment on this, on whether you should do the air test. So Dylan just pinged me back, gave me some additional information. So he says surface testing and air testing answer different questions. So surface testing will tell you the condition of the building materials. This won't tell you if the mold is affecting the air quality of the space, and that would require air testing. So that tells us, you're getting different things for the different tests. So the air just tests the air, would that mold that's growing on the wall be potentially, putting spores into the air, and then on the wall if it is mold. So hopefully that gives you a good enough answer for that. So thanks for that question. Okay, so the other one, so we talked about, what building or home would need a mold test. So if there's no indications, none of those conditions are found, you might not need an air test. So that would be a home that probably wouldn't add any value. They might be curious and want to do it anyway, but as far as building materials, it could appear that it doesn't need that. So are there conditions where the buyer of the home or the owner of the home or building might want to do a test? And that answer is yes, there are secondary uses for the mold test. So this would kind of come more into the health realm, where they could use that test and then go to a health professional. So it would be, somebody who's immunocompromised, has respiratory issues, allergies, asthma, elderly family members with breathing problems, and young infants and things in the family. So again, these would be kind of health issues, and the Sporecyte report isn't designed, it's not a health report. So, but you could use the report to go to a health expert, and then they could use that to help identify and diagnose what was going on. let's see. So is a home inspector a good resource for a home buyer to get a mold test? So I have talked to some people. It's like, well, the home inspector is not the right person to be doing this. You know, they need to call the mold professional. So, the thing about a home inspector is most of the time that the property is under a deadline. And so the home inspector is already there at the location. So it's convenient for you to do the mold test on site, you know, for probably half the price of having somebody else come out. So you wouldn't have to set up that extra appointment, wait for time for them to get out there, you know, do the reporting. So there are times that the report would indicate like there is a problem and you may not be able to identify it. And it may need, you know, an extra pair of eyes on. And some home inspectors also, you know, they are doing additional mold assessments and remediation kind of things. So sometimes they are the experts that can go in. I don't know if I explained that very well. I keep looking at the clock, trying to make sure I talk fast and get through everything. But it is super helpful when the home inspector's there. It's a great time to be providing, you know, this screening, this testing. And most of the time it's going to be, you know, exactly what you need. Let's see, if a mold issue is found, as I mentioned, that needs further investigation, it's good for the home inspectors to have a group of people that they could recommend calling for further assessment. And you would always want to give, you know, a few choices for the home buyer to choose from. And if there is a problem, you know, you can get an extension. So again, the goal is not to derail the purchase. It's just to make sure that the home is in excellent condition. So that kind of concludes this part of it. So saying, you know, is mold testing, you know, valuable to the homeowner, home buyer? And, you know, my answer is yes. There's definitely a lot of value in a lot of different ways. Primarily, you're looking for the moisture issues, but there are these additional benefits by using Sporecyte to give you this other insight and help and value. So if you watched that webinar that we did a few months ago about you know, marketing mold testing, you know, identifying, you know, what home can benefit, what buyer can benefit, you know, that's what you want to be looking for. So to just try and do it at every house, you know, just to make a buck, you know, we don't encourage that kind of thinking. And all the inspectors that I talk to, they're trying to provide the highest level of service. So, and as our goal at Sporecyte is to provide the absolute best report that we can provide to the industry and be the industry leader. Let's see. So we've got another question from Todd. I'm in Maine. Can you tell me what time it takes for you to get samples? So we use, if you use our return labels, and I guess I'll go over here really quick. So we charge $20 per sample for analysis and reporting. And you can get our return labels, which are 2-day Federal Express AM labels. So we charge $25 when you use our labels. You can use your own label, and then there's no charge for shipping. So from Maine, it would be $2, or excuse me, it would be a 2-day shipping AM, which means before 10 o'clock in the morning, we would get it to our lab. And how shipping works with FedEx, let's say you do the job on a Monday and you would put the samples in the FedEx box on Monday. So FedEx does not count that Monday as a shipping day. That's kind of, they're like, well, we picked it up, and make sure that that you're there before the last pickup of the day. So Monday won't count. So Tuesday, Wednesday are the 2 shipping days. So we'll be getting that package Wednesday morning. So again, we try and do everything that we can to get all the samples reports out the same day, but our guarantee is the next business day. So more than likely you'd get it on that Wednesday, but we guarantee it'll be there, you know, Thursday. Another thing to note on shipping timing. So if you do a job on a Friday and you put the job in the FedEx box, you know, on Friday, so the weekends don't count as shipping days. So Saturday, Sunday aren't shipping days. So Monday, Tuesday would be the shipping days. We would get the job on Tuesday morning. Also, holidays are not counted as shipping days by Federal Express. So holidays aren't shipping days, weekends aren't shipping days. And the day you put the samples in the box, the job in the FedEx box doesn't count. So I hope that it's a little detailed, but I think that can be helpful for everybody. Another, kind of tip or insight that we've gotten is it's better to take your job and drop it off at a FedEx drop box or a FedEx branded store. So we do have people occasionally drop them off at like a Walgreens or other retail location that accepts those. But I would encourage you, if possible, to not drop off samples or jobs there, because we have found that those have gotten lost or not picked up on a timely manner by FedEx. So try and use a FedEx specific Dropbox or FedEx, specifically branded store. So I hope that answered that question fully. So again, it's $20 per sample. And if you use our shipping label, it's $28. We do have some inspectors that use their own next day shipping labels. So they'd be responsible for paying for that, overnight, because overnight's just really expensive for us. See, another question from Todd: do you supply/sell spore traps? We do. On our website, when you go to our shopping page, you'll see that you can buy spore traps, and we sell them for $5 each. And for every 3 air cassettes you buy, we give you a return shipping label if you want it. There's a little checkbox on the checkout that says, yes, I want, return shipping labels included. So then when we send out the cassettes, we'll send you the return labels as well. So you buy the cassettes right up front, but we don't charge for the return shipping or the analysis until we've emailed you the report. So when we email you the report, then we will bill your credit card. But there's no prepayment for analysis or shipping. Okay, we've got another question from Matthew. In regard to shipping, will USPS or UPS work? We're fine with however you want to ship it to us. So if that works better for you, that's great. We won't charge you for shipping if you pay for your own shipping. Again, we only charge for shipping when you use our return labels. Other than that, we do get USPS and UPS, so that works fine. Okay, so getting into our common questions, we'll go through a few of these that we've gotten over time. And thanks for all the questions. Again, anybody that's got questions, post them up. This is the most questions we've gotten in a webinar, so it's great to get those. And again, if you guys can think of topics that you'd like us to cover in future webinars, please feel free to reach out with ideas, because if we can, we'll implement those. Okay, so here's one. If I don't see mold, do I need to test for mold? We've kind of talked a little bit about this. So if you see mold, consider collecting a surface sample. It's obviously a quick way, pretty low cost way to confirm that is mold or not mold, which may, indicate the way you go about cleaning it up. But it's up to you. Let's see. One question that we get sometimes is, if there's mold in between the walls, will the air sample find it? And the reality is, probably not, because we've got to be in the active air environment to find mold in the air. There could be occasions where it could be, some cracks in the wall or something where it could be, even microscopic cracks, mold can get through, from the outside of the building and, inside the building. But I would definitely say, you can't guarantee that, I would say rarely would mold inside a wall and air sample is not going to pick that up. Let's see, does it really matter what kind of mold it is? So the exact kind can be helpful. Specifically, as you look at our report, we've broken the mold part, I call it the lab part of the report, into 3 groups of mold spores. So you'll have the top group, which is a handful of spores that says water-related, what is it? Water-related indoor spores, something like that. And then you've got indoor-outdoor spores, and then you have a group just outdoor spores. So we've created it in those 3 groups because that top group, water-related indoor spores, these are the spores that we do not find that frequently in outdoor samples. But we find them, regularly when there's a mold problem in a home. So we're specifically looking for those things. The next group, indoor-outdoor spores, they grow equally well indoors and outdoors. So we find those in both places. So we put those in their category. And then outdoor spores just really don't grow well on building materials. So we don't usually find those as active as indicators of an indoor mold problem, but we are looking at all those things. So for further on this, we just say, Stachybotrys gets remediated the same way Cladosporium. So, ultimately, you've got to identify and cure that source of the moisture. So here's a great one. I live in a desert. Mold doesn't grow here. So before I read this answer, we had a job. It was, I can't remember if it was October or November, but it was a job in Phoenix. It was an 8-plex apartment building that had recently had a major remodel. So there were no indications of water issues, but the owner or buyer or the builder wanted the home inspector, to do air samples on each of the units. So we got 7 of the 8 samples came back with aspen strings. So that's those strings of spores that we really look for as strong indicators. So it was like a ton of aspen strings in 7 of the 8 units. So the inspector called me up. He's like, man, this is crazy. I'm not sure how to present this to the owner or the buyer. And I never said, well, why did that guy want to have the mold test in the first place? Anyway, but it's like, hey, he's like, are you sure there's a problem? I'm like, okay, well, we see the counts. Let's look at the report. Let's go look at the pictures. So, sure enough, the pictures had these strings of mold spores. So we kind of talked through, like, what's the condition? It's new, newly remodeled, where you didn't see any problems. We didn't see any problems. So I've never heard back from the inspector, but his best guess was there was I'm not sure if it was a swamp cooler or an HVAC system that was common to the units that hadn't been worked on, hadn't been updated. So his thinking was it might have been coming from there, which is, probably a pretty strong guess. But it was good that he tested for mold. Who knows if somebody may or may not have reacted to mold in that apartment building, but there was a lot of mold in there. So, that's just a quick example. But, one of the things to think about is this, as we talk about here with this response to that is, it doesn't matter where you live, if it's high humidity or no humidity, that modern buildings are built to be sealed in, so they're not letting a lot of air out. So when there's a plumbing issue, or there could be an issue with an HVAC system, a lot of times we'll see HVAC systems that they will condense in some areas, could create a mold issue. There could be several reasons that, even if you're in a desert, could arise to having some kind of a moisture issue. So you've got plumbing in the home, different kinds of appliances or things. So it's definitely a possibility. We do find issues there. So it's a super good question. Let's see, we've got another question. Excuse me, I'm gonna take a quick drink of water. Sorry about that. Okay, Tom's question. I'm Tom. I'm a certified home inspector and mold inspector. The way it usually goes is it looks like mold. Let's just get a remediator and get a price to remove it. It saves time on the real estate contract. I'm not asked to test it. So, I think and Dylan, he'll probably chime in with a good answer to that. But I could see that, it's like, okay, this looks like mold, let's just fix it. So for sure you would want to say, okay, let's make sure that we identify what's causing the problem, fix that, and then fix that area. So, I could see somebody saying, hey, I just want to move on. Let's make sure we get this fixed. I think that's probably a legitimate way to do it. If Dylan gives me some feedback, I'll read that, but I'll move on from there. But again, here's our thing, the only way to know if it's mold is to do that sample. So again, it's up to the home buyer how they want to pursue it. And if they want to just, hey, let's just get this cleaned up. We know there's something here. and they think they've got the water issue or whatever's causing the staining, probably good to go. Let's see, is mold testing only useful for home buyers with allergies or other health issues? So I think we kind of answered that. There's other issues than just, allergies or health issues. There's also the condition of the building materials in the home. So if somebody does have allergies, they just want to try and be as comfortable as possible, deciding, let's see, is mold testing? Yeah, so it could be useful for those issues, if they take the report to a health professional, but other issues would primarily be, seeing that just how clean that home is, like we showed in the images pages, and, if there could potentially be some kind of moisture issue. So that concludes that Q&A. Dylan did give me a little feedback on that earlier question. Let's see, regarding if you see some staining on a wall, do you just want to clean it, just remediate it right away and not even see if it's mold or not? So Dylan's not only does he run our lab and is our product manager right now, he has run a lab in the Chicago area for 8+ years. He's done tons of mold tests, other biological tests, done hundreds and hundreds of building inspections. So he's seen all this stuff. I'm like your desk jockey, here behind the computer screen, developing stuff and working with home inspectors. So on that question, Dylan said, I've been on the opposite side countless times as an environmental consultant, where the home inspector did not test, and then the seller is not budging on concessions until they have a laboratory proof that mold is present. So like, I can see that's a really good point, in a negotiation for a property, knowing specifically what the conditions are, would definitely give you more leverage if you know something versus not knowing something. So again, that could be just, conditional for that specific property. So Jim asked a question, do you offer bulk discounts for purchasing on aerosols? And we do not at this time. We've talked about it at some point in the future, maybe, but right now we just sell it, just one at a time. So yeah, right now there's no bulk purchase discount. See, Matthew asks a silly question in regard to surface sampling. Besides buying them from you, what companies do you approve to buy supplies? So, I would say Zephon, you can go direct to them and buy aerosols or swabs or slide tape. EMS sells the Allergenco D and Positrax. We really like Positrax, and we will start selling those again in a couple of months. So we are coming out with our own pump. I'll go grab it really quick. Okay, so sorry about that. So we've designed and are manufacturing our own air pump for home inspectors to be used. So this will be a really robust pump. It's calibratable, has a 5-minute timer button. It fits aerosols and Positrax. It's battery, or it's not battery. It's a plug-in pump, but we've identified some battery packs that are super affordable that you can just plug this pump into the battery pack, and then you've got a battery operated. We did a plug-in to keep the price down. Our goal is to retail this for $100. If you bought one of our starter kits, we'll give you a break on it, because we want the starter kit pump. We want you to have a really robust pump. So it's got a set screw. You can put it on a tripod, and that's kind of, it says Sporecyte on it. So of course that's cool. And that'll be coming out in probably the end of June, July. Once we start selling that, then we'll start selling Positrax again. Let's see, I think I got everything covered there. So please feel free to reach out to us with more questions or ideas. Ellen Ogihara, again, you can call us on our helpline, send an email to Ellen, and we look forward to working with you. So with that, let's see, Robert asks, is it only 5 liters per minute? No, it's 5 minutes at 15 liters per minute. So That's a good question to clarify. Yeah, the best samples are 5-minute samples at 15 liters per minute. We have found that under some conditions, once you fill up that gel pad within the cassette, once that's got material on it, new material that hits it is just going to bounce off. So if you run the test too long, you might not get an accurate count of the amount of material in the air, or it piles on top of each other. So yeah, 5 minutes at 15 liters per minute is our recommended sample rate and time. And always take the air sample outside when you're doing air samples inside. If you're just doing surface samples, you don't need to do an outdoor air sample. So only when you're doing air samples do you need to do the outside air sample as well. But with surface samples, you don't need the outdoor control sample. So with that, looks like I've been talking for 55 minutes. So we got a few minutes to go for an hour, but without any other questions, I'm just going to end the webinar and thank you guys for attending. Please feel free to reach out with us with any questions we can ask or anything we can help you with. We love working with you. Have a great rest of your week on Friday. Thanks so much.